Good evening, Lou Bravo family. I am back and feeling much better. I do not sound like Kermit the Frog on a particularly bad acid trip, but the flu has come and gone. I beat it, defeated it, and I appreciate the kind words and the well wishes as I was getting better. I wanted to make this video probably sometime during the week, probably last week, on income taxes, and really in a couple of parts, giving you one the history, two, what the modern day tax brackets look like, and then also how this could affect crypto currently, and also for you to have and make a plan accordingly to shield yourself from any potential issues that could stem up from this. There could be a point in time where, if this thing goes parabolic, we'll have more money than anybody we've ever heard of, and need to have a plan for that accordingly. As a disclaimer, I want to let everybody know I do not give tax advice as part of my financial advising business. That's where you see your CPA for that. What I offer on the tax insight is incidental to my profession as an educator. So, with that, this is my 24th year teaching. So, I've offered these kinds of insights to my students and also to my clients. But at the end of the day, the path to obtain the either professional advice who deal with this on a day-to-day basis is definitely on your end. And I will give a resource at the end of this, and at least in our realm, the crypto realm, that could definitely help you with that. So let's get into it. Again, I always like to start with a quote because somebody else always said it better. And that quote is, I predict future happiness for Americans if we can prevent the government from wasting the labors of the people under the pretense of taking care of them. None other than Thomas Jefferson said that. There's two real linchpins that have buried middle class America over the years, and particularly what we're looking at maybe within the last 75 years. And that is one, taxation, and it's two, inflation. I will do an inflation video, but I wanted to get this one out of the way first. So let us get started with this. Here is my outline. I'm going to go over the 1913 income tax, which was really the first, wasn't exactly the first income tax technically, but it was the first one that taxed everyday Americans under a legalized framework from the 16th Amendment of the Constitution. Now, 1913 dollars are not the same as 2024 dollars. I will show charts and brackets on what that looks like from 1913 if we were going to put the numbers through the inflation calculator of what it would look like today if that income tax was passed today. And then I'm going to also show you that inflated 1913 tax of today's dollars against the modern tax brackets as well. And I think we'll see something very interesting when we're comparing and contrasting those. And then I'm going to end it with some questions that I'd like you to think about, maybe as homework to do, but also just, again, to get a plan in place. So when this stuff happens, you're ready to go. It's almost like muscle memory in your mind at that point. You see, and then you respond and react and execute. The phrase that I often use is, the best time to buy fire insurance for your house is not when you're standing in front of it and it's engulfed in flames. You should have bought that fire insurance long before that event happened, in preparation of something that could happen like that. The same thing with the tax realm on this. I want you to start thinking ahead and planning ahead, because if you haven't thought about this yet, again, hopefully this video will help you get into that mindset of doing so. So let us kick it off and let's take a look at what the 1913 income tax system looks like. Now, February of 1913, the 16th Amendment to the Constitution was passed, which allowed, in simple terms, Congress to obtain taxes from its citizens in any source derived. Previous to that, they'd have to go through the states. The states would have to collect the taxes, and then the feds would have to get them from the states. In 1913, that changed. By October of 1913, an income tax act was passed, which gives you pretty much the following brackets if you look at this. 7 brackets starting at 1% all the way to 7%. And then it was based on the income level. It was progressive, which doesn't mean if you make between 20 and 50 that you pay 2%. It's a little more complicated than that. But just in a general simplistic term, at the lowest level up to 20 grand. And then they have brackets all the way up to the highest one was 7% at over 500,000. Almost looks kind of harmless. And even more so when you think about the exceptions that were actually made for this. If you were making $3,000 or less filing single, you didn't pay any federal income taxes. And if you were a joint filer because you were a married couple and you filed at $4,000 or less in income per year, you didn't pay any federal income taxes as well. Again, seems rather innocuous and harmless just on its surface level as you're just looking at the numbers. But again, we're also in the year 2024. And the 1913 numbers, because of inflation, don't exactly register as we're looking on this. Who the hell's making $3,000 a year and living off it as a single filer? Which brings me to the next screen to compare the chart we just looked at, which was the 1913 dollars of that tax system, 1% to 7%. And now I'm going to show you what that looks like put through an inflation calculator at each level. It's the same 1 through 7%, but look at the income levels of what $20,000 was in 1913. Basically, if this tax system was passed today, anybody making up to $600,000 would only pay 1%. And then you could see the brackets from 2% to 3%, all the way up to 7%. Anything over $15 million was taxed at that 7% level. Again, almost seems harmless because the real eye opener is when you put the exemptions through the inflation calculator. $3,000 for someone filing singly in 1913 is the same as $90,000 per year for someone filing single today. So this was not a tax that was designed to really stick it to middle income America or even low income America at this general level. Relatively innocuous. If you were married filing jointly and you made 120 or less, you were exempt from federal income taxes. And even the 1% doesn't seem too harmful, comparatively speaking, as we're looking like this. Now, looking at the charts and soaking this in and trying to wrap your head around an original intent of an income tax versus where we are today is mind-boggling. I'm going to show you that on the next screen because, anytime you're dealing with federal laws and Congress in general, and God help us with the president, what looks harmless and innocuous on the surface rarely, if ever, stays that way. And it never makes for sound public policy. Because I'm going to take this right screen that you're looking at right now onto the next slide. And basically, this is basically the 1913 tax system in inflated dollars for today. And I'm going to stack it side by side on what the modern tax bracket looks like today in today's dollars. And you may notice something very interesting. The two things that I noticed more than anything is that they took the highest tax bracket on the 1913 system at 7%, added a few percentage points and put it as the lowest one on the modern tax bracket. So that's the first thing I noticed, is that the percentages became inflated as well. And they went from 1 to 7 all the way starting at 10, going up to 37%. And the second thing you might notice, as they increased the percentages, they also decreased the actual annual income that was needed to actually be subjected to those brackets. So instead of making up to 600,000 at the 1% level, they figured they'd save that for the highest level and then tax everything at inflated rates from 10 to 37% below that 600,000 level. Now you're looking at the lowest tax bracket. If you make up to 11 grand per year, you're taxed at 10%. Now, God bless you if you can minimalize and minimalistic your lifestyle to get to a point where you're only earning 11,000. You can live off that, so you can be subjected to the lowest tax rate. But I don't think most of us are in that range. I'll say that majority of the people I sit down with are in that 22% level. The 24% level, I think, is one of the more insidious ones, because the people who are making between 140 and 170 and not quite in the next tax bracket, doing pretty well for themselves, but they really get hammered by those four levels on that 140 to 170. It sounds like a lot of money, but when I sit down with them and do their budget and do kind of like line items on where it's going, that tax is one of their their biggest killers, at least on this. And exemptions for you, what the government says is eat the bugs, you middle class peasant. Not exactly giving anybody a free ride, exemption from the income taxes the way the original system did. The original intent compared to the modern intent looks like it is designed to enslave you. Hate to say that. Now, there's been a lot of innovations between 1913 and today that have allowed middle income to make more money. Industries have been born, since 1913 that weren't in existence then. The internet has opened up and expanded people's ideas of what constitutes a business model. Rather than having a brick and mortar storefront, you can have something that takes up cyberspace real estate, pay a fraction of the cost, and still make revenue and still have a business model based on that. And also working remotely. I think there's more opportunities today working remotely where we could make more income and generate more revenue as entrepreneurs than someone in 1913 ever had. Keeping this in mind, there's also a strong correlation between now and the next generation of assets that can make a lot of people very wealthy. And I think that's part of the crypto revolution. So if all the innovations and all of the regular people earning more money forced the government to go from innocuous to draconian, from left side to right side, what possible path do you think it could look like with the government seeing regular people becoming millionaires overnight through the crypto revolution? What kind of tax system would they move on from to go after you and your newfound wealth, because you as a regular person should not be earning the millions that the elite do and the people who are subjecting you to this? Well, I took a look at that too, and completely hypothetical, I basically did two things. I took the modern tax bracket and I increased the percentages the same way they did from 1913 to here. And then I lowered the income level on what, let's say it was its own specified crypto tax bracket, to show what that would look like, comparatively speaking, on the next slide. So here's your modern tax brackets with no soup exemptions for you. And it goes from 10% to 37%, at the lowest level, 11,000, all the way up to 578,000. So what I did is I took that 37%, I used that as the very bottom and added a few percentage points onto it, the same way they did from 1913 to today. And here's what a hypothetical, really draconian crypto tax bracket could look like if they took the same approach to implement a new crypto tax bracket and changing it from the modern tax bracket. So there you go. I took the same percentages. I took 37 to 52. The way the old one went from 7 to 10, I just did it that way. And then I sliced the income level from crypto down from 11,000, which was the lowest bracket, and made that the top end of it. And then cascaded it all the way up to between the first bracket at $200, all the way over to $11,000 on the top end of that bracket. So now you're looking at, this is the equivalent of the next step that they would take. I'm not saying they have or they will or they discussed it, but if they were able to do it from 1913 to the modern system, what's to stop them from doing it today to some kind of future system that's just aiming at crypto because they don't like what crypto represents. They don't like what it actually does to threaten their own interests. What exemptions do you have for crypto? For crypto taxes, exemptions? Go fuck your mother, money launderer. Vote for me, though, so I can up the percentages when I get in Congress. What are the charges against crypto now? You're into money laundering, you're into trafficking, you're into drugs, all of which has been done in US dollars for decades. But now the real concern is crypto, and that's why they have to up the tax brackets to steal from you. And what happens if Congress gets together and says, you know what, peasants, you shouldn't have XRP. That's a banker's coin. Don't know why you have it in your possession. We're now taxing all XRP gains at 85%. Go fuck your mother, whether you like it or not. These are things to think about. Not so much that you can steer off and mitigate 100%, but please let's not be lulled into thinking that the oligarchs who are in charge of this are actually on our side. Because I'm telling you, at this stage of the game, they're really not under any circumstance. So I want you to think about some questions. And some of these questions that you may or may not have thought about before is, what is my current tax plan when my coins and tokens start to run? Now, the current guidance we've received from the IRS is that the crypto gains are taxed as property. And that property as a percentage basis, 15 to 20%, whichever way you're looking at it. But also states also do tax crypto gains as well. So you have to think of it in that level to mitigate your risk there. Have you researched which countries are more tax friendly when it comes to crypto gains? And what are your top five countries ranked? I would seriously take a look into that, because if that 85% taxation for XRP comes down, or that draconian tax bracket that I put there just to scare everybody comes down, or something close to it, um, you know, what struck me as pretty profound and eye opening is when Lou said, "What am I going to do? Am I going to stay in the United States and be poor and broke because the government's doing this to me, and then be a multimillionaire in some other country? Why would I do that? Why would I force myself to have a lesser lifestyle simply in the place I was born without being um, subjected to less draconian measures in another country that you could go to accordingly and live like a king and be a multimillionaire?" Doesn't make sense. What I like about the self custody dynamic is that it does make us a citizen of the world rather than a citizen of some arbitrary geographical boundary that was drawn up over years and years and years of wars being fought and political negotiations happening. The citizens of the state of North Carolina and South Carolina are really that much different from each other than the geographical boundary and what they're owing to their overlords there? Maybe, maybe not. I've been around the country many times over and met lots of people in all different states. We're all after the same thing. We want to work hard. We want a purpose and a mission. We want to take care of our families. There's really not much of a mystery to it. Do you have a CPA and or attorney selected to assist you with this plan? I don't know if you do. Don't know if you thought about it. Don't know if you think you'd get to that stage once this happens. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you steer you through a couple different options, and then also give you a resource at the end. So if you haven't paid for an attorney, they're not cheap. And I'm going to walk you through kind of what a retainer would look like, at least from a monetary end, and obviously what you would need from a later end. So for those who have done this before, obviously this is rudimentary and not new, but for those who have never done this before, you basically would pay a down payment to an attorney to reserve access to his or her services. Nobody works for free, as I've said, and that attorney will have a legal staff, a paralegal, a legal assistant. The only thing I haven't seen when I've peered behind the legal profession as an industry is schedulers are the only ones that aren't really billable hours, but paralegals and legal assistants are, including letters that get sent formally, emails, phone calls with the attorney and or the paralegal for legal advice as well. And the lowest that I've seen a retainer paid is 3,500. Lowest I've paid anyway is 3,500 for a retainer fee. Upwards of, I've heard people paying 15 grand for it. And obviously, if you decide to go all OJ Simpson on somebody in your hometown and get chased by a white Ford Bronco, your attorneys are probably going to need to be a little more prestigious, and the price goes up at that level. At least at that end. And the way it would work is, let's say January 1st, you decide, all right, this year, January 1st, or next year, January 1st, I'm going to put a retainer fee on an attorney that I trust, and I'm going to use their services for the whole year. What they will do is they will bill for the phone calls and the emails and the formal letters and the legal advice and the staff hours and everything else like that. They will bill those services until the retainer fee is used up. Or, if your retainer fee is 3,500 and you decide in July of that year that you're done with their services, and they only used 2,500, then the remaining 1,000 would be returned to you as the client. So what you're probably going to see at this stage of the game, if a lot of you get into that multi-million-dollar level, you're going to be paying for shit that you just never thought you'd be paying for when you're making 60, 70, 80 grand at your middle-class job. And one of those just could be, you might be paying 3,500 a year as a budgeted line item on every January to retain the services of an attorney so he or she can protect you and your assets and think of it as a $3,500 insurance bill. You're paying for the insurance that a crypto tax attorney, CPA, networked individual can give you to give you the advice to steer clear of this, of any landmines that may come up. Because once you get that kind of money, you just don't want to lose it. You're doing all the research you can to hold on to it. Sometimes that research will cost you money. In the case of navigating the Byzantine maze of tax law, not a bad idea to actually invest in that. An alternative option, if you haven't done this before, I have over the years, and I've recommended clients to do it as well, is the idea of a prepaid legal insurance plan. This is kind of one of those interim things. You would basically pay a company on a monthly basis, and they're like a marketing agency for in the attorney and legal world. So they have a network of attorneys, the same way an HMO has a network of doctors or PPO has a network of doctors, and you would pay that on a monthly basis. Now, the lowest I've seen is $20 a month, and the highest I've seen is $175 a month. There might be more expensive stuff than that, but basically you're getting access to legal representation without having to put down a $3,500, $5,000, $15,000 retainer. Now, the cons to this is that the network is limited, so the services are limited. I.e., if you, as a daily habit, like to go around and beat people with lead pipes and get charged with assault and battery, these are probably things that are not covered within your legal insurance. They're designed for different reasons, to cover, estate planning, to cover wills. Maybe you need power of attorney documents. Maybe you need to set up trusts. Maybe get audited by the IRS. Traffic tickets, family law, things that happen to you, even DUIs and things of that nature, administrative law, civil. You get sued by your neighbor because they thought you trespassed on their property, stupid shit like that. There's a lot of different things that it would cover. It's similar to an insurance plan. If you have a dental insurance plan, you're paying a premium every month, and then you have a bullet point list of things that dental insurance plan covers. The prepaid legal is no different. You would just need to research which prepaid legal one plan fits your needs the best at that point. At least as an inexpensive mode on a monthly basis. Again, budget for it just until you get over that hump, until these things run and you start moving money around, you start making some good coin. You want to protect it at that level, probably with something a little more formal in the realm of an attorney that like, and trust. And then I'm going to give you, I don't know this guy other than I've seen a video by Black Swan Capitalists for an interview. I will put that link in the description and also the comments and pin it. A guy named Andrew Gordon. It was a phenomenal interview. I think it was an hour long, highly enlightening, and I would highly recommend investing that hour into learning what he knows. He is specifically a crypto tax lawyer. I think he's a CPA. I can't remember. If not, I think he has a network of CPAs for that purpose, because he understands the niche market that is going to be desperately needed coming up. He's not the only one. There's plenty of them out there, but that was the one that if you want to at least get your foot in the door of understanding how his world works in the world that we're going into, that link and that interview by Black Swan Capitalist was phenomenal. So with that, as I'm ending, this is just the beginning guide, kind of an overview. Start thinking a little bit differently than you have been before. I tried getting you thinking differently on the goals to make for XRP. How many XRP should you buy? Try to get you thinking differently on dollar cost averaging, and when you're implementing that plan and executing that plan on a monthly basis. And then try to get you also thinking differently on how self-custody of those assets. I did a 4-part series on how to store your crypto in self-custody offline in a hardware wallet. This is no different. The inflation video is going to get you thinking differently again. The goal of it at the end of the day is protect yourself at all times, and definitely protect your assets as these things start to run and as you see yourself profiting from them. Signing off, I want to just say giant hugs, family, and I'll see you all at the top.